I don't know at which point, and I guess you'll tell me now, you started what is now known as Eyewitness
Eyewitness News.
News.
So Eyewitness News was started in 2009, which was my junior year. That's when we were doing internet journalism, and we
Mhm,
had to run a blog. And it was just for a semester, 4 months.
mhm,
And what we had to do was what you call repurpose a story. So you take a story and you sort of rewrite it, and you put all of the credits at the end. But then I said to myself, "Look, I practiced journalism for 3 years. I don't need to repurpose stories." And our international college, which was part of a larger university, where a lot of the students didn't necessarily speak Mandarin Chinese or didn't speak it at a level where they could, you know, so there were a lot of issues, cultural issues, language issues, and whatever
mhm.
have you. So I began writing about things in the university to help to make it, life better for the students there.
So like a student paper type.
Well, I started to focus on student type articles about things
Mhm,
happening in the university for this blog. And then coincidentally, in 2009, after the spring semester was done and I came home in the summer,
mhm,
we were having our constitutional reform campaign and all of that.
mhm.
So when I went back to Taiwan, I just continued to follow that and to write stories about it. And I began by harvesting emails and emailing the stories to people, sort
Okay.
of like spamming them.
Yeah, that's a that reminds me of Kevin Hart.
Mhm.
Person said Kevin Hart was the only comedian at his time who would go into the crowd in his early shows and take people's emails. And basically, he started email.
Well, that's the thing. And I mean, Facebook was wrong, but it wasn't half as popular as it is now. I remember,
Mhm,
like, trying to convincing one of my friends, a very close friend, very skeptical guy, a brilliant mind, Jamali, because he's just such a wonderful person. I just mentioned his name.
mhm,
Jamali is just such a talented person, really great communicator, wonderful person.
mhm,
And I remember trying to convince him to join Facebook. Tell him why I think Facebook was such a good thing. So
mhm,
what I did in the earlier stages, I would get people's emails and just email the stories to them.
mhm.
Got to the point where Google would block you, say, "Oh, you sent 500 for today." So, and just then I began to encourage people to subscribe. People began subscribing. I always remember, either the third or fourth subscriber to Eyewitness News was a very prominent politician at the time.
Okay.
So, people would be in public saying one thing or give you the impression they don't read Eyewitness News. But when you look in the list there, and Eyewitness News just grew. The following year was the election, 2010 elections. And I remember I wrote about some of the most controversial things that, you know, I don't want to say people didn't want to touch, but for instance, there was this big controversy about the election date. Mr. Adamusos, who was the opposition leader at the time,
Mhm,
the Saturday night, he had said what he claimed would be the election date. And then he said, if another date is given, it's because the prime minister changed it. And the prime minister, being the dramatist that he is, he went and he said he called his bluff and he brought out a calendar and he wrote some dates on there. And Oris took a picture and he posted it on Facebook among other pictures that he took of the event. And I used that picture in one of my articles. And I remember somebody messaging me and say, "Hey, zoom in this picture and look at that date that the prime minister wrote." So I asked Oris, who I knew, if he could send me the original image, which he did. And when I zoomed in, I saw this particular date. And then the following day, Elson Crick, who was at the time the communications consultant in the office of the prime minister, he sent the script of the prime minister's speech with a particular date in there. So there was this big controversy about the election date and whether the prime minister had changed the date because of what Mr. Yusa said.
mhm.
And I think that story it flew. I remember Searchlight asked my permission to publish that story, and they published a few other stories from my coverage of the election. So, you know, Eyewitness News just grew from strength to strength. I always remember publishing this story about I was in Taiwan and I wrote a story saying that Kingston had shut down and was preparing for the impact of Hurricane Thomas. And there's this particular woman whose name I would not call. She messaged and said, "Who said that Kingston is this and that?" And the next thing you know, Hurricane Thomas had came and devastated the island and all of that. And so I mean, I would say I'm really proud of what Eyewitness News has become. But I know all of the hard work that I put in to make Eyewitness News what it is today. It was a lot of hard work.